to do. Also want to apologize for any sort of background noise because I'm filming this during the day because I have to go into work in about an hour or two, and I wanted to film this before work, I guess. Yeah, also if you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. That always means a lot. And then without further ado, let me get into my fact list of today. Just gonna zoom in. I made it in a Word document, but alright, like this. Okay, now I'm able to read it. Fact number 1. Also, by the way, these are facts that are aviation specific. I forgot to mention. So it's mostly about aerial combat in World War One, how it kind of started, and then we'll talk about some flying aces as well, and then just like, I don't know, there are 10 facts in total, but I thought they were interesting. So yeah, let me just get into it. Fact number 1. In World War One, for the first time, there were pilots who fought in aerial combat. However, nobody really had a clue what they were doing. Soon enough, though, there were a couple of pilots who stood out from the rest. They were later called flying aces. Fact number 2. The first flying ace was a Frenchman called Adolphe Péjoux. He already was a famous pilot when the war broke out. He was an acrobatic pilot, and he performed in France and Europe, I guess, also. And he did all sort of stunts, like loopings, barrel rolls, and stuff like that. But anyways, in 1915, I think, yeah, in 1915, in 1914, he enlisted in the French Air Force. And then the first year of his service, he basically just flew like observational flights. But then later on in 1915, he figured out that his acrobatic flying skills were actually really useful in dogfighting. Dogfighting is when two planes or more planes like starts fighting against each other. By the way, the term dogfighting I mentioned in another video about World War One. Dogfighting is the term itself is derived from the barking noise that the sound of the engines make when they shut off the engine mid-air and then start to back up to increase maneuverability. But yeah, anyways, I'm rambling on like crazy today. Where was I? Yeah, in 1915 he started to figure out that his acrobatic skills were perfect for dogfighting, and like he got famous because Péjoux was taking out multiple enemy targets. When Péjoux took out 5 enemy planes, the French papers started calling him the Ace. From then on, the concept of flying ace was born. A pilot was a flying ace when he took out 5 enemy planes. After that, he was a flying ace. And also about Péjoux, I saw some like maneuvers he performed. He just like when there was an enemy on your 6, you know, like from attacking from behind, he performed loopings and stuff like that to get behind the enemy's tail and shoot him. And yeah, it was really like acrobatic flying, and the guys on the front line who were stationed on the ground loved to watch those kind of aerial fights, you know. Moving on to fact number 3. Let me just zoom in a little bit. I'm sorry. A new era in aerial combat took place when Max Immelmann took off on August 1st in 1915. The German pilot flew the very first fighter plane called the Fokker Antrekker. It was equipped with a synchronized synchronization gear, as I say. This made sure that the machine gun could fire in between the propellers so that it wouldn't hit one of its blades. So basically the machine gun fires when the propeller is not in front of the machine gun, which is kind of like advanced technology. But this just goes on to show, like, in times of war and crisis, technology advances at a rapid pace. Just look at the vaccines for COVID right now. It's also like being really technology is just moving faster in times of crisis. But yeah, anyways, moving on. This made sure that the machine gun could fire in between the propellers so that it wouldn't hit one of its blades. When his first victory was achieved, he took out a Canadian pilot. The age of the Fokker Scourge was born. In this year, Germany dominated the skies in World War I. So this was from 1915 up until 1916. Although Germany did not have a lot of Fokker planes, they did have enough talented pilots. Max Immelmann had a friendly competition going on that year with Oswald Pulke, I guess. Yeah, Oswald Pulke. And they wanted to see who could take out the most enemy planes. On the ground, the people loved him, and a signed autograph was worth $1 million. Like, not literally, but just like a lot of money. Even in the enemy trenches, these soldiers admired Max when they saw a Fokker plane over their trench. I've lost, where was I? Unfortunately, Max's plane crashed as he died a year later in combat. Some sources say that the propeller synchronization malfunctioned and he blew off his own propeller and then crashed. Which is kind of sad way to go, you know. But yeah. Moving on to fact number 4. His rival, Oswald Pulke, like a friendly competition, friendly rivalry, never achieved the same level of fame than Max. However, he did write the first ever learning book for aerial combat. He also won more fights than Max Immelmann. He wrote 8 basic rules of aerial combat. Pulke did not die in combat, though. He died because of an accident. He crashed into another German plane. This caused his wing to be ripped off and his plane to spiral down and crash. Pulke died, but his book on aerial combat taught many pilots the basics of aerial combat. I'm not really sure what the 8 basic principles were, but it was something like only shoot when you're really close to the enemy target and you're sure that you're gonna hit. And also you have to attack from the rear with the sun on your back from behind you. This way enemy pilots had a really hard time to figure out where the firing was coming from, you know, because they would look back and they won't see anything because of the sun. And your plane will just be like, they're just blinded, they won't see it. And when you're really close and you start firing, it would be a complete surprise attack because the pilot would never, the second pilot maybe, would never have spotted you. And yeah, which is really terrifying actually. But those were 2 principles, and the other ones I forgot. There also was one about altitude and stuff. I think it's best when you're flying high and you dive down when you spot an enemy. I also think that was something, but I'm not sure. Yeah, moving on to fact number 5. An aerial victory did not always count as a victory. There were many differences between counting in different countries. The Germans were the most strict. A pilot only received a confirmed kill if there were other witnesses. The French pilots had to see the enemy plane crash to get a confirmed kill. There were also probably kills, but they did not count. Probable kills, but they did not count in France. The British, however, counted everything. I mean, like, without witnesses and stuff like that. Not everything, but anyway, never mind. Fact number 6. French pilot Georges Guinemet, je pense. I'm sorry, Guinemet, dreamed of a plane with a lot He wanted a 37mm cannon equipped on his plane to be the most decisive in battle. And because he already was a famous flying ace, he got what he asked. So the engineers of the French Air Force, they put a 37mm cannon on his plane, and they called it the SPAD, S-P-A-D, which obviously was then equipped with a 37mm cannon. However, this cannon could not fire in volleys, so you have to shoot, reload, and shoot again. So you have to be very accurate with your firing. But Georges was successful with it because he achieved a total of 53 aerial victories, which made him obviously a very famous flying ace during World War I. Georges Guinemet. If there's somebody French watching, how do you pronounce Guinemet? Is it Guinemet? I'm not sure. Anyways, moving on to fact number 7. The young British pilot Albert Ball became famous for his surprise attacks. He made it into an art, as sources would say, during World War I. He used the clouds, the sun, and the dead corners to his advantage. Ball specifically targeted German observational planes, which he shot with exceptional speed. This Albert Ball, he was really young. I'm not sure about the actual age, but I think it was somewhere around 17, 19 years old, I guess. Which is just absolutely insane, if you ask me. When I was 17, I was still going to high school, like everybody here in Belgium. And I was worried about... What was I worried about? Well, I guess this just goes to show that this guy named Albert Ball had a lot more to worry about at the age of 17 than me. But yeah, moving on to fact number 8. The French flying ace called René Fonck was the most dangerous Frenchman of the war. Only the Red Baron would achieve more kills than him. Fonck, his tactic existed out of flying as high as possible and then diving down on enemy targets. To do this, one had to be insanely accurate and able to predict the movement of enemy planes. He also had to know exactly when to fire as he was approaching his target. Fonck really knew a lot about planes. Fonck also survived the war, and after the war in 1926, he wanted to be the first pilot ever to cross the Atlantic Ocean. However, Charles Lindbergh, I think it's in English, so it won't be Charles, it will be Charles Lindbergh, beat him to it. Fonck died in 1953 from natural causes. Fact number 9, the second last fact. Balloons were considered a valuable target for enemy pilots. Not only were these balloons always heavily guarded by fighter planes who hovered above the balloons, they most likely were also equipped with heavy machine guns, and there were always anti-aircraft gun near the balloons to fight off enemy fighters. To kill a balloon meant you had to evade enemy machine gun fire, AA fire, and fight off enemy fighter planes. So it actually meant a lot if you took down a balloon. By the way, the balloons were there for enemy artillery to like determine enemy artillery positions. So they were like hovering above the battlefield, and there were people in like hanging on the balloon in like baskets or something, and they were like with binoculars. They would spot where the artillery had to aim. I don't know really the specifics on how to determine the position because I'm not a military man, obviously. But yeah, they were like hovering above the battlefield, pilots, and they were always heavily guarded because they were essential for the artillery on the ground to be effective. Also, like that job of hanging on a balloon, like and spotting, was considered one of the most dangerous jobs in World War One, I guess. I once read that in an article, but don't take my word for it because there will be a lot of dangerous jobs in a world war, but that was surely one of them. Anyways, because you were like, also there were enemy snipers who would love to shoot you if you were determining where to bomb them, you know. Anyways, the last fact, and I'm sure talking about aviation and World War One, you already know what this is going to be about, or who this is going to be about. The last fact is about the most famous fighter pilot ever, Manfred von Richthofen. He achieved 80 victories, aerial victories, and he was nicknamed the Ace of Aces, and he was an absolute superstar. He had a tactic of staying surprisingly calm during these intense firefights, and he would only strike when he saw an opportunity. And critics on the ground actually never were impressed. Critics who knew a lot about aerial combat, they were always like, yeah, he fights in a mediocre way, not really something dashing about it, but he was very effective because he was so calm. And in 1917 he decided to paint his plane red, which gave him the nickname the Red Baron. Later on, when he was commander of a squadron of planes, they all painted their kites, their planes, in these fashionable, really remarkable colors, and they put like paintings and little icons and graphs on them and stuff like that to actually, it was because I can see you thinking like, why would they do that? Because that would entirely mess up the camouflage. But you have to think about it. The engine of a plane is so loud, you're not really getting a lot of camouflage. You're getting your camouflage by the sun, and then it doesn't really matter which color your plane has. The sun is like, if you're camouflaged by the sun or something, it's like, it's really bright, you know. The only thing you could say is like you lose camouflage when you're up in the clouds, because there were French planes who had like blue wings, and that will be more effective to like hide for enemy pilots. But this was a thing. Manfred von Richthofen did not want to hide. He was so famous and so feared in enemy pilots that he wanted to stand out, and he wanted his squadron to have this like mentality of, we're not backing down, you can see us, here we are, fight us if you dare, you know. So it was really badass actually. But yeah, anyways, this was the last fact. I really hope you enjoyed this video about aerial combat in World War One. Yeah, I had great fun looking up articles about it, because and this is the irony of it all, when I go on holidays, I have like a fear of flying, you know, like in a large plane, I always get a little bit claustrophobic and stuff like that, but I love reading and watching movies and documentaries on aerial combat in World War One, because the planes, I don't know, they look really cool in my opinion, and like with the jackets and then the goggles and the gloves, it's really cool. I actually have a pair of driving gloves, which really look like World War One pilot gloves. But yeah, anyways, I'm rambling on about it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in a later video for sure. Goodbye.